Dragons are superior forces in strength and skill because they possess ancient magical blood. There were only two ways for a human to kill a dragon. They could expose it to sunlight or use silver, which is basically the aura emanating from a silver weapon. When this material comes into contact with the dragon's heart, it freezes and destroys it. As a result, those who had the ability to kill dragons became hunters. However, dragons were still able to attack cities and kill people with ease. Millions died, including dragon hunters from the kingdom, except for one, Ragnar. He was the only survivor. He discovered where Ultimatia, the leader of the dragon bloodline, would be and confronted them. He was determined to end them for everything they had done. He hated them with all his might. But he ended up getting beaten and lost. He was too weak. He was just an orphan, a complete failure. His parents were eaten by dragons when he was only 3 years old, and some of his relatives took him in. One day after that, they were eaten by dragons too. So he was sold to a wealthy family, and a few months later, the dragons showed up and ate them as well. In the end, he was not only left homeless, but he also began to be bullied. After all, dragons always appeared whenever he was around and killed everyone except him. Every time. It was as if he were cursed to watch everyone he cared about die, and after 8 years, he was still cursed. Of course, he was defeated by the dragon of the bloodline, but he was still alive, which made him want to die even more. But Ultimatia stopped him. She knew Ragnar from the past, and how many times he had suffered because of the dragons. She believed this was God's will, and if it was his will, it could only mean one thing, that God wanted Ragnar as his new servant. Ultimatia then forged a blade with her blood and stabbed him. She explained that he would forget everything, because from now on, Ragnar would become a dragon. Ragnar screamed in pain as the dragon's blood began to mix with his body, making him feel like he was burning from the inside. He even remembered the name of a person, Leonica. He met her when he was being bullied, and she saved him by defeating his aggressors. She introduced herself as a dragon hunter and asked him to join her. He was hesitant, thinking she might die one day too, and he would end up alone again. But she assured him she was stronger than the dragons, so she wouldn't die. Ragnar finally met someone who would survive with him. They teamed up and started hunting dragons, but Leo was doing most of the work, since Ragnar wasn't very good at fighting. She had been hunting lesser dragons for years and became the best dragon hunter in the city. She also became a kind of heroine to Ragnar, and he started to believe he was no longer cursed, and it was all thanks to her. So he decided to take care of her, but he was still weak. However, since he wanted to be more useful to his heroine, he began training in secret, even without any talent for hunting dragons. He knew he would never be like Leo, but as long as he could help her before he died, that would be enough for him. One day, the city was attacked by a superior dragon named Greenweld. After the city fell, Leo immediately went to fight, and Ragnar followed her. People were dying all around, and Ragnar watched. Then he saw Greenweld, who used blood magic. He could manipulate blood into blades or flames. Ragnar tried to stop him, but his sword broke on impact. Greenweld counterattacked with blood flame and threw Ragnar straight into the river. Leo saw this and got very angry. She confronted Greenweld for hurting Ragnar, threatening to destroy him. She attacked fiercely, but he wasn't as easy as the other dragons she had killed. And worse, he wasn't even using his full strength. Leo was already exhausted and hadn't managed to land a single scratch on him. He was by far the strongest dragon she had ever faced. She then wondered if he was the dragon god himself, which enraged Greenweld. How could she compare a lower-class dragon to a mighty god? Greenweld attacked with flame, but Leo, always alert in battle, quickly dodged. Greenweld then decided to teach her about the kind of dragon he was. He said he was the 10th seed of the bloodline, which made him the lowest rank of the superior dragons. He even told her the reason why the kingdom would be destroyed. Leo was shocked to learn their lives depended on the mood swings of a dragon god. For dragons, the attack wasn't even serious, because dragon hunters were not a real threat to them. To them, humans were as insignificant as ants. Greenweld laughed and attacked Leo again, ultimately killing her. Ragnar had been rescued from the river and was already awake, and he saw all this happen right in front of him, unable to do anything. And after that, his whole life changed completely. His heroine had died right in front of him, so it seemed the curse was still there. Greenweld then wiped out all the city's inhabitants, but Ragnar survived. He was completely devastated and developed a deep hatred for dragons. He set off on a mission to exterminate every last dragon. He wanted revenge. He trained non-stop over the years. He almost died many times but kept going. He made new companions, but they all ended up dying while he stayed alive. He kept losing those around him, But he never stopped. He hadn't suffered his whole life just to end up transformed into a dragon by Ultimatia, so he interrupted a ritual by stabbing his silver sword into his own chest. This resulted in his death, and Ultimatia was very disappointed and left with her bloodline to carry out other work elsewhere. Right after that, Crimson, the former dragon monarch, arrived and revived Ragna. Crimson left before Ragna woke up. Ragna then went back to training even more, but still kept losing most of his battles. He still wasn't strong enough. However, little by little, he began winning all his battles, and he did this for decades and decades until his silver sword completely fused with his body. This caused him to begin emitting silver from his own flesh. He surpassed human limits and became the strongest dragon hunter of all time. Now he was on the same level as the dragon monarchs. He could protect everyone and everything, but there was nothing left to protect, and he felt useless every day. However, Crimson soon found him, and Ragna reacted as always. He tried to kill Crimson immediately, but Crimson seemed to have multiple bodies and was immortal. Then Crimson said he wanted Ragna to join him and help fulfill his wish. And that wish was the same as Ragna's, to kill all dragons. Ragna was shocked. He couldn't believe those words. Crimson then revealed that when everything ended, Ragna would have to kill the last living dragon, Crimson himself. Without thinking twice, Ragna took the chance and began a revolution in dragon hunting. However, it was taking too long, and they wanted it to be faster, so they had an idea: to send Ragna back to the past and give his current power to his younger self. He appears on the night of the attack, just before Leo's death. Greenweld is still explaining to her how many dragons see humans as insignificant, and we can see young Ragna still in the river. Future Ragna then shows him all the devastating memories, including the one where Leo dies. They have a conversation, and future Ragna drives his silver sword into the chest of past Ragna, thus transferring all his power to him, with the goal of saving Leo and everyone else. As the power surges through young Ragna, he feels immense pain and screams loudly, scaring all the dragon hunters nearby. The moment Greenweld tries to attack Leo and hit her, Ragna wakes up. He instantly freezes all the lesser dragons without any effort, and his demeanor has completely changed. He now seems much colder thanks to the silver aura emanating from his body. This completely terrifies Greenweld, stopping him in the middle of his attack. He compares the fearsome aura he's feeling to that of a dragon monarch. When he realizes it's coming from Ragnar, he hesitates, since Ragnar is just a human. So he shifts into his dragon form, but Ragnar instantly freezes him and shatters him on the spot. Leo is standing there, watching Ragnar's insane power. She's still alive, and that makes him incredibly happy. He runs over, hugs her tightly, and then passes out in her arms. The next day, the city is attacked again by another dragon. Ragnar is still asleep, but Leo rushes out immediately to protect the people. The forest trees seem endless and alive as they keep attacking her, and even try to attack him too. When Leo sees that, she turns around to help him. However, other trees stop her, but just before they can strike, Ragnar wakes up. He instantly freezes all the trees and locates the forest dragon, who's devouring some maidens. He charges in without hesitation, which worries Leo. She follows him, but she can't catch up. He's way too fast now. When he reaches the dragon, he knocks it down with a single kick, and just before it can eat a young maiden, he sends it flying across the forest. When he looks at the girl, he realizes it's Crimson, the previous dragon monarch, disguised as a girl. He thinks Crimson came to find him, but Crimson has no idea what's going on and asks who this crazy kid is. But Ragnar, who remembers everything from his past, knows he's Crimson. Leo finally catches up, and the forest dragon charges at both of them. Leo gets into position to fight, but Ragnar quickly steps in front. He shoves a silver bomb down the dragon's throat, making it explode and wipe out the entire forest. Leo is shocked by Ragnar's power. She even jokes, saying it's going to be hard to keep up with him now. But Ragnar tells her to leave him and get out of the country. Leo is stunned. She doesn't understand why he would say something like that. She refuses and yells at him. She's the leader. She gives the orders. Ragnar is shocked. Leo has always been calm, strong, and composed no matter what. He wonders why she won't accept that this is the best decision. Then reality and guilt hit hard. Yes, Leo is strong and calm, but she's also just a kid. She's only 12 years old, a child who was forced to be strong to protect someone weak. But now things need to change. Ragnar knows Leo will die if she stays with him, so he makes his decision. He's going to save her. He repeats the same words she once used to save him. The weak die. Leo starts to lose heart. She doesn't want to be separated from him. she snaps and lashes out, thinking she can prove her strength by fighting him. But the former strongest dragon hunter's sword is stopped by a single finger from Ragnar. He forces her to leave the country along with the other dragon hunters, and he watches her leave, crying. He then turns and looks at Crimson, who just wants to go home. But Ragnar insists he's the former dragon monarch. But that doesn't make sense, since Crimson is still alive in direct sunlight. So Ragnar calmly explains that Crimson isn't dead because he's no longer a monarch. Crimson just turns around and walks off. At that moment, Ragnar collapses from a high fever. This forces Crimson to help him, since Ragnar saved him earlier. And just for context, Crimson is pretending to be a girl right now. He's in maid form. Crimson can change his age and gender whenever he wants. Anyway, Ragnar wakes up, and Crimson asks him about the dragons destroying the kingdom. Ragnar explains that's exactly why they need to act now. They have to kill the dragon god, the monarch who leads the dragons. Crimson can't believe it. It sounds like a joke, but Ragnar isn't kidding. Their future selves managed to do it, so it's possible. And this time, they'll do it faster, since they've already met and know what to do. Crimson turns away, wondering how Ragnar knows so much about him. He starts questioning this future Ragnar keeps mentioning, since to him it hasn't happened yet. But honestly, he finds it all pretty entertaining. While Ragnar was unconscious, Crimson analyzed his entire body and discovered that he was fused with the silver sword. Ragnar can generate that silver aura called silverine, and his potential is just insane. Crimson, always cunning and a master planner, is secretly excited to test this new dragon-killing method. He turns to Ragnar, still pretending to be an innocent little girl. Suddenly, they see a few lesser dragons flying nearby. These dragons are headed toward Leo's group, and Ragnar can't let that happen. He grabs Crimson and runs in the same direction, asking for orders. Crimson tells him to destroy all the dragons, and Ragnar does exactly that. He starts by kicking one of the dragons so hard it halts all the others. Then he releases his silver aura, forming multiple swords around him. He launches them all at once, skewering one dragon before it can even strike. The dragon freezes, and one of the swords flies toward Crimson, who catches it. Crimson inspects the blade and notices that on the outside, it looks completely ordinary. But still, it can freeze a dragon with a single touch, even in the hands of a mid-level hunter. Crimson realizes Ragnar's power is way beyond what he imagined. He sees that Ragnar's potential is so immense that if he could control an army with those swords, he'd become the true master of dragons. Then Crimson throws up a slime and tells it to go do the dirty work. The goo happily charges the dragons, swallowing everyone and dissolving them until it turns into a bear. Crimson finally decides to reveal his true form and agrees to join Ragnar, but under one condition. Ragnar must drink a special poison that will kill him if he ever betrays Crimson. Crimson is a little scared of Ragnar's power, so he needs to be careful. Ragnar drinks the poison instantly, without even letting Crimson finish explaining, which surprises him. After that, Crimson sits down and starts explaining the plan to Ragnar. They will wipe out the entire dragon race, and once all dragons are gone, one will remain, Crimson himself, who Ragnar will also have to eliminate. Once Ragnar finishes off the dragons, Crimson walks up to him and says he wants to see the Silverine battle arts in action. They spot a group led by Michael, who's comforting some children, and that already tells Crimson a lot about the situation. He approaches the kids and assures them that they're safe now, because Ragnar the Reaper dealt with all the nearby dragons. He introduces Ragnar as the Master Dragon Hunter, someone who has already defeated several superior dragons. Of course, that's not true, but no one needs to know that. Thanks to Crimson's words, they all believe it and start calling Ragnar the Reaper. Michael then kneels and introduces himself, asking the duo for help. He wants them to defeat a superior dragon that attacked his city. They were forced to flee when a giant tornado suddenly struck. This tornado was caused by that superior dragon known as Disaster, who holds the third seat in the dragon lineage. Crimson knows this dragon and explains that he uses wind to hide himself. Ragnar immediately gets fired up and wants to face Disaster right away, but Crimson stops him and even lightly pushes him to the ground. He knows Ragnar can't move and tells him to rest for about 3 days. It's clear that Crimson only paralyzed him on purpose, just to keep Ragnar from interfering with his plans. Crimson then tells the group that Ragnar can't help them because of his injuries. Faced with this, they end up asking Crimson for help, but he refuses, even when they offer everything they have, including their swords as payment. Crimson realizes they're desperate for help because they feel guilty. They ran away from the city and left people behind, and now that guilt has hit them. And Crimson makes things worse by narrating everything that happened during the escape. Michael can't take it anymore, falls to his knees and starts crying, saying that everything is true, but that he's too weak to do anything, and if he had the power that Ragnar and Crimson have, he would protect everyone and everything. And that's exactly what Crimson wanted to hear. Malevolent as he is, he hands a sword to Michael, telling him that this is the power to defeat dragons. Michael accepts the sword, with the other dragon hunters there, fully supporting the idea. Now Crimson has a group of people he can control in battle, so he takes everyone back to the city and walks through a magical door, leading to a room full of weapons on display. The most amazing thing they've seen. What impresses them the most are the bullets, since all of them are infused with Ragnar the Reaper's own silver aura. The slime is also useful for tracking Disaster's movements and informing Crimson. It creates a simulation of the current state of the city, and shows that the tornado is more active than ever, with some survivors inside. Crimson realizes that Disaster is just buying time because he's been ordered to stand by in the city, so Crimson devises a plan before sunrise. He motivates the dragon hunters with a somewhat rousing speech. Everyone gets hyped up, and they head off to face Disaster. Shortly after, Crimson uses a loudspeaker to taunt Disaster and throw insults at the monarch. Disaster gets mad at Crimson for insulting his last aunt and becomes so furious that he starts chasing them. And that's exactly what Crimson wanted. He drives eastward while the sun slowly rises on the horizon. He speeds up the vehicle and Disaster stays right on their tail. They open fire, quickly weakening Disaster's tornado since their ammo is infused with silver. Right after that, they pass under a bridge, causing the tornado to stop and suddenly open up. Disaster is thrown out right as the sun is rising, and Ragnar had placed silver on the bridge, helping the tornado split apart. Disaster is confused, and before he realizes it, the slime turns into a giant hand and grabs him, pinning him against a massive silver arrow. Disaster can't believe what's happening. Everything happened so fast, and now he's freezing completely because of the arrow, which is being held in place by 5 knights. He tries to summon his wind, but can't, because the arrow is piercing his heart and blocking his blood flow. He also can't melt the arrow, because his magic is too weak from the damage, and the knights keep holding it firmly while the sun rises. He screams in pain from the cold of the silver piercing his chest and the heat of the sun, when suddenly, the ground where the arrow was embedded is ripped out by some force. It falls, taking Disaster and the knights down with it. The arrow breaks in half, and its head remains stuck in Disaster's chest. Now he's free and furious. He tries to pull the arrow from his own chest with his back turned to the enemy, and that's a huge mistake, because Crimson runs him over with the vehicle, shattering all his bones. The knights then finish the job, and he burns under the sunlight. Crimson says that this defeat was Disaster's own fault. Even though he was being provoked, he didn't give it his all, because he never thought he could be defeated. And unfortunately, that arrogance was just as dangerous as silver and sunlight. After the battle, Crimson gives the hunters and survivors food, vehicles, and weapons so they can leave the city. Just as they're about to depart, Crimson casts a spell to make them forget about him, and they turn around and disappear. Michael thanks Ragnar for his help, and Ragnar praises him and the others for taking down the dragon, making them really happy, and the group of dragon hunters departs. After that, Crimson pulls a radio from his witch hat and listens to an announcement being broadcast. It says there's a dragon attack at the border, and that all citizens must evacuate the capital to somewhere safe. No one is to approach the border, no matter what happens. Ragnar suspects it's a trap, meant to stop people from leaving the country by gathering them in the capital. They head to the capital and manage to sneak into the Old District, an area closer to the palace. Crimson then disguises himself as a woman named Veronica, and leaves Islami in charge of watching over Ragnar, who can't stand large crowds. He promises to be back in 2 hours and asks Ragnar not to get into trouble. He then walks off, blending into the crowd and thinking about the city's population. Despite the influx of refugees, the number of people on the streets is low. The only plausible explanation is that they're reducing the population without anyone noticing. He meets one of Golem's servants and gets the latest intel. His other servant, Akimera, also arrives, and Crimson tells them about his plan to get Ragnar to fight Ultimatia. He needs them to work together to make it happen. Meanwhile, outside, Ragnar and the slime find a crowd gathered around a raised tarp. Military officers there pull off the tarp and reveal frozen dragons. The dragons then burn, signaling that the capital's defenses and efforts to repel danger are working, encouraging the crowd. But Ragnar knows it's just a trick, and knows exactly who's forcing them to do this. He starts to walk away when suddenly, he passes by Ultimatia, disguised as an ordinary citizen. She notices too and turns to ask if he's okay. Ragna immediately becomes alert and tense upon seeing his enemy. He feels an urge to cut her to pieces right then and there, but Crimson had ordered him not to do anything, even if he could win in a one-on-one. He wants to wait for Crimson and the others, and he knows that Ultimatia has her superior dragons, Nebulum and Borgias, standing guard and ready to act if needed. So he decides to walk away, and as soon as he does, Nebulum appears to check on Ultimatia. He instantly grows suspicious of Ragna, because he looks like a dragon hunter. Ultimatia says Ragna's just feeling sick because of the crowd, which is something Nebulum relates to as well, since he gets nauseous and throws up too. Ragna uses this opportunity to slip away. Meanwhile, Crimson and her servants review footage of Ultimatia, who is in the palace with the king, and time appears to be frozen. But because of that, she doesn't show up on camera until the moment the king is attacked, and things go completely insane. Crimson explains that Ultimatia only appears at that moment because she can't stop time and rewind it at the same time. She has to choose between stopping or rewinding. This is her weakness. If they ambush her and kill her, she'll rewind time on herself to heal, and since she can't stop time while doing that, they could keep killing her over and over again, forcing her to rewind each time. It would keep happening until she ran out of energy, which would eventually mean permanent death. The problem is that Nebulum and Borgias would interfere, and that's where Chimera and Golem come in. They need to make sure Ragna finishes the job without any interruptions. Meanwhile, Ragna is walking through an alley, wondering if he made the right choice. He hallucinates Crimson telling him he did the right thing, but even so, Ragna thinks he needs to finish Ultimatia off immediately. He asks Slime to contact Crimson and let her know he found the target before leaving. Slime calls Crimson and informs her that Ragna extracted him. Ragna returns to where Ultimatia is, and she's helping a child reunite with their parents, casually asking Nebulum if that family is on the list of people who are going to disappear. Ragna hears this, and Nebulum explains that their method makes people vanish without leaving a trace or suffering. Ultimatia is pleased to hear this, saying it's true salvation. All of this disgusts Ragna, and he walks up to them and quickly paralyzes Nebulum with his sword. Ultimatia doesn't notice right away, and only realizes when Nebulum shatters into frozen pieces. That's when she understands that Ragna is an enemy. She throws off the disguise and tries to stop time, but Ragna dashes in and cuts her down instantly. She rewinds time on herself, but he cuts her to pieces again and kills her once more. Ragna keeps attacking repeatedly, and Ultimatia loses count of how many times she's already died. She starts to fear that her time is running out, and Borgias tries to help her, but the golem attacks him before he can do anything. Ragna keeps attacking, but is suddenly trapped by a magic barrier created by Nebulum. Nebulum managed to wake up, but he's in terrible condition. Ultimatia rewinds time again and attacks Ragna using a blood dragon's barrier. However, Ragna uses all of his silver power to break Nebulum's barrier, and Nebulum tries to reinforce it, but the slime appears beside him and swallows him, allowing Ragna to break free. Ultimatia fully heals and calms down a bit, but Ragna also breaks through the blood barrier, and he attacks her immediately before she can stop time. But she quickly rewinds while thinking about her first seat dragon, Watakamui. Meanwhile, Ragna keeps attacking until they're outside the capital. He holds nothing back and unleashes all his rage on her, punching her repeatedly until the ground cracks and causes an explosion. Ultimatia then decides to use a trick Watakamui taught her, meant for desperate situations like this. She rewinds the entire world, bringing them all back to the moment when Ragna and the slime met in the crowd, around a tarp that covered the frozen dragons. Ragna feels confused and senses something is wrong. Ultimatia appears behind him and freezes time. She starts talking about the amount of magic needed to rewind the entire world, and that's why she doesn't do it often. But she had to because Ragna is a threat to her. She then wonders why he hates so much, to the point of dethroning her over and over again. She moves the people to a safe place, leaving only Ragna and the slime. Before she can move the slime, she notices Ragna's finger twitch, which scares her. No one is supposed to move without permission when she freezes time. Nebulon arrives and attacks Ragna in revenge, and she sees that Ragna isn't moving again and is getting beaten up by Nebulon, which makes her feel relieved. She stops Nebulon because she's holding the slime, which is dissolving parts of her skin. Also, beating Ragna won't help, because he broke through all her defenses during the battle. She realizes his body is like a silver sword, immune to magic, so they'll have to find another method to defeat him. She asks Borges to tell the king to use a powerful light beam to strike Ragna. But then, Ragna remembers when Ultimatia injected her blood into him in the future. That makes him so furious that he ends up waking up. He charges at her, but much slower than before. Ultimatia starts panicking because no one should be able to move in her domain, and she sets Ragna on fire with her own blood. She becomes terrified, as her magic isn't working, and everyone with her blood can move normally. She only chooses who can't move, and since Ragna had her blood in the future, he can also move. But she doesn't know that, because this is a different timeline. As Ragna continues moving toward her, Nebulon creates a barrier to protect her. But Ragna breaks through it like it's nothing, headbutting repeatedly, which terrifies her, and then he cuts her to pieces. She rewinds time within herself, causing time to return to normal, since she can't do both things at once, and Ragna appears again, trying to attack her, but Nebulon throws himself in front of her to protect her, and suddenly, Ragna stops and starts bleeding from his face, a result of the excessive strain he put on his body to move while time was frozen. He collapses on the ground, bleeding heavily, and at that moment, the king fires that beam of light at Ragna after Nebulum leaves the area with Ultimatia. After the explosion, Nebulum sees Chimera and Crimson, who's disguised as a woman, standing right beside Ragna's body, protecting him. But Ultimatia and Nebulum don't know who they are. Crimson, then, is deeply disappointed in Ragna for losing. He should have followed orders but didn't. And now he's in this state, which is extremely irritating to Crimson. Even so, Crimson describes how he's never seen Ultimatia like this before. He says she was never combat-oriented, she didn't like to fight much, but always had full confidence in her control over time. Now she's shaken and trembling, because Ragna shattered her trust in her temporal ability. Crimson wonders if Ultimatia is going to use her magic one more time to try to finish Ragna. Ultimatia is in a panic, thinking something is wrong with her magic, but in the end, she decides to try it again to stop time. But that's exactly what Crimson wanted. He detonates several bombs that the golem had planted around the area, killing many people, which completely breaks Ultimatia, making her even more unstable. She didn't want to see those people suffer. She wanted them to die quickly, without pain or suffering. Crimson's plan works perfectly, as Ultimatia completely breaks down and panics, unable to understand what's happening. To change that, she tries to rewind time again, but Nebulum stops her, saying it would use up all her magic. Crimson gets furious at that and leaves, carrying Ragna on Chimera's back. They return to their globe chamber, a teleportation room connected to several points across Earth and the Moon. Crimson wants to leave the country and recover, but Ragna wakes up and refuses to go. He insists that he won't leave until he takes care of Ultimatia. Crimson tries to calm Ragna, saying he did a good job and tells him he needs to rest now, but Ragna won't accept that. He struggles to stand and activates his battle art, Silverine. Crimson then orders Chimera to restrain him, and he stomps on Ragna's head, complaining about the technique, saying that this technique could damage the teleport room. But it's already too late. There's a small crack in the wall of the room, and Nebulum, who's outside, full of rage over what happened, awakens a power and starts searching for Crimson. That crack was all he needed. Crimson orders the golem to attack, and it shoots at Nebulum. But Nebulum calls for help, and Borgias responds by firing at the golem. Meanwhile, Ragna keeps resisting Chimera's restraints. He breaks free and is determined to destroy all the dragons outside. Crimson is completely shocked and furious with what Ragna is doing, because he's basically helping the enemy ruin their plan. But Ragna doesn't care. He only gets stronger. Luckily, they manage to escape that room through an emergency exit and end up at Stalia's military base. Crimson is taken to the commander of the Royal Army's Special Forces, who also happens to be the second princess of the kingdom, Alessi. Crimson already knows everything about her, and hates her. Stalia was born without arms, but has a special power. Her eyes can see the aura emitted by all things, and it's that aura that allows her to move anything using only her mind. The first thing she managed to control was a set of silver cutlery, which is why she got the nickname Civil War Princess, the Princess of Utensils. The Solarians believe she's a living miracle, and half the world knows who she is. At age 3, Stalia defeated 3 lower dragons. At 6, she won a combat tournament. At 8, she wiped out an entire order of dragons. At 9, she stopped a coup d'etat. 10 years later, she became a master, creating incredible silver equipment. Now at 16, Stalia commands a military unit made up of powerful fighters who use the gear she herself created. The reason Crimson hates Stalia is simple. She can tell if someone is lying. And as we know, Crimson is a massive liar, so she's basically his natural counter. Stalia starts questioning Crimson while pointing her weapons at him, wanting to know how he got there. Crimson knows he has to think very carefully before answering, since it's obvious she and her unit want to use the teleport room to flee the country, now that the two superior dragons are after them. This means their goals are the same, so they should cooperate to escape together. Crimson wants to trick her. Stalia can see the changes in aura based on emotions and determine people's sincerity. So, if he acts with honesty, mixing in a bit of truth with his lies, he should be able to deceive her. Crimson then decides to reveal his left eye, shocking everyone. He introduces himself as Chris Ways, a mage. Great mages in this world are sometimes born with non-human traits, and since Stalia's unit has a mage, the Dragon Eye should convince them. She doesn't want to hide it either, since Stalia could kill her at any moment if her instincts said she was guilty. Then, Stalia gives him a massive sword, catching him off guard. She usually gives weapons to people she likes, and she ends up liking her because she knows she's a liar. Crimson holds the sword, but she immediately takes it back forcefully. That was basically a trick she used. Whoever touches her silver sword, she can see their true nature. A person's true nature is the sum of their lived experiences, and Crimson's is basically a mass of agony, death, and despair. She orders everyone to prepare to attack Crimson and accuses her of being responsible for the explosions in the capital. Crimson tries to explain, but Lesse doesn't give her a chance. He turns to Fu, a mage in the unit, and asks for help, but Fu refuses because he always listens to his commander, no matter what. Lesse then throws her sword at Crimson, making him scream in fear. But in reality, he doesn't care if it hits him, because he won't die anyway. Crimson just wants to use this chance to hide in the base and later escape with Ragna. Suddenly, Ragna appears and intercepts the sword, saying he's the only one who can kill Crimson, and Lesse is shocked to see him. Ragna suspects Crimson has done something, but this time he says he's the victim. While the others wonder how he got there, Lesse falls to the ground screaming, leaving her unit confused. Her mentor, Nazarena, helps her up as she points at Ragna and calls him a sword with arms. Ragna is confused and worries Crimson really did something, and Crimson asks how Lesse is seeing Ragna, since she sees the world in a completely different way. She sees him as a sword with a body, and starts to go crazy and fall over him. That makes her unit really angry, thinking Ragna did something to her. They try to attack him, but he stops everyone with ease. Lesse keeps looking at him in awe, thinking he's like a perfect fusion of human and sword. He's beautiful, perfectly sculpted, full of scars, and with that Severine aura that completes everything. He's super powerful, but at the same time so calm, and with such a warm presence. She starts acting shy and asks Nazarena what she should do. Ragna and Crimson are both shocked. They didn't expect that at all. Ragna tries to talk to her, but she hides behind Nazarena, completely embarrassed. A bit awkwardly, Ragna says he and Crimson aren't there to fight, and if Crimson is spared, they'll follow orders. The duo is locked in a cell, while the unit decides what to do with them. Inside, Crimson forces Ragna to kneel and steps on his head for ruining the entire plan. Ragna doesn't want to let Ultimatia live much longer, and now both the Golem and the Chimera are missing, so he feels like he has to make up for all that. Ragna says he'll make up for it by beating Ultimatia up, which makes Crimson completely furious. Ragna wants to go back to the capital once he's recovered, which frustrates Crimson even more. Then Ragna asks about the slime, which Crimson had already forgotten. Crimson finds a drop of slime on Ragna's neck and uses that with a strand of his own hair to try to bring the slime back to life. He succeeds, but the slime is now much smaller than before. This makes Crimson throw all the blame on Ragna for yet another failure. After Ragna apologizes, the slime asks where they are, and Ragna has no idea. Crimson explains that this is a military training base underground in northern Rizi. People in this place are in danger due to high dragon attacks on the city. This makes Ragna change his mind about going back to the capital, and the soldiers gather with Alessia to report the situation. The dragons are acting strange. There's been no activity and it seems they won't attack, even if they get the signal. Alessi thinks calmly about it and concludes the dragons left, but she doesn't plan to let them go. Even so, this could still be a good chance for them to prepare. Crimson and Ragna appear, which makes Alessi blush and cover her eyes. Crimson then offers to help them with the escape plan. He knows they want to use dragon blood as a magic energy source for teleporting out of there. It's a solid plan, but it won't work. The enemy's military power is far too great in comparison, but if they join forces, Crimson says he can provide information on the enemy, and he also says he can deliver a super weapon capable of defeating the high dragons alone, and that weapon, of course, is Ragna, the Reaper. Alessi blushes hard at hearing Ragna's name, but quickly regains composure and refuses his offer to cooperate. Crimson focuses on one of the high dragons attacking, Zora, and says Zora is the one who handles and leads military affairs. His power is chemical synthesis. He creates poisons using his own blood, and with that he can eliminate or even hypnotize his targets. He spreads those poisons in the form of mist, covering a huge area. Fortunately, these poisons can be neutralized by sunlight or silverine. That info could be the edge they need to fight him, even with his army getting much stronger due to the poisons and hypnosis. Lesse and her unit are suspicious of this information, but Crimson reminds her that if he were lying, Alessi would know. So he sends Ragna to try convincing her, since she likes him. Ragna's not sure if he can do it, but he tries because he wants to help the people there. Back in the cell, Crimson tells him he calculated that at least 10,000 dragons, along with the 13th seat, led by Zora and Teratekra, are going to attack. The base has only 1,800 people, including staff and civilians, which means everyone will die. Crimson asks him to forget about Ultimatia for now, just so they can escape the country. She'll use everything she has, including Ragna, to make sure everyone gets out alive. Ragna then convinces Alessi that, even though Crimson is a horrible piece of trash, there's nothing he wants more than to kill all the dragons. And that's why Ragna joined him, and as the best dragon hunter in the world, he wants Alessi to use him, because he can help her. Alessi is thrilled to hear this from her first love, but keeps her professional posture and agrees to work with him. Crimson is pleased with that, and wants to adjust the plan based on the intel he has. Alessi doesn't care about Crimson, she just wants the information he provides, and she'll do the rest herself. Crimson agrees, teasing her, and warns her not to mess up. He then informs her that the dragons suddenly stopped acting because he and Ragna fought Ultimatia in the capital. Probably that's why they rushed over there. There, the other Kamui shows Ultimatia Mikhail's head, saying he was the one who defeated Disaster. He found and defeated Mikhail, who told him before dying that the Reaper would come for him. At the base, Ragna's power is tested. He infuses a sword with Severine, and Isaac proves it by cutting through one of Alessi's swords. He successfully cuts half of the sword, leaving everyone impressed. Ragna explains that the effect won't last long because the swords deteriorate over time. But since Alessi's swords are high quality, there's no reason to worry. Alessi then decides to infuse all weapons with Ragna's Severine. In the base's teleportation room, Fu and his team are having trouble with the magic circles, and the amount of magic they need. They need about 15 lower dragon bloods just to transport a single person. Even if they kill all the dragons that are going to attack, the blood still won't be enough for all the people. They need to run more experiments, but there's no time. Crimson then shows up and offers to lend a hand. Fu doesn't trust him, but he still doesn't refuse Crimson's help. While Alessi talks to Ragna in private, she hands him 3 swords that are already available, because there's no time to make a special one for him. She then says that after the battle, she wants to join the Solarians and become a dragon scourge. She knows she won't be able to take care of over 1,000 people once everyone escapes the country. But if she joins the Solarians, she'll be able to protect her people. Even so, she might die in battle. And when that happens, she wants Ragna to join the Solarians in her place and help her people. She begs him, but unfortunately Ragna refuses, because he doesn't like religion. He tells her she shouldn't act like her death is already predetermined, but she explains that her intuition tells her that since the beginning of the war, she's been fated to die. She then becomes assertive and emphasizes that Ragna asked her to use him. That makes him her subordinate, and as her subordinate, he must follow her orders. And that impresses Ragna. He never thinks about dying in his battles, and when that happens, he just figures it's fine. Alessi, on the other hand, is completely prepared for the worst, which makes her even more capable than he is. Her willpower is so incredible it shines, making him remember Leo. These are the people he always wanted to survive. He then decides to transfer his power into the 3 swords and tells Alessia to become a great dragon hunter because he will protect her. The sun begins to set, and the unit waits for the enemy's arrival. The sun finally sets and Zora appears and starts attacking the base with root-like tentacles. He broke through the barriers Alessi had placed, but the base should be able to withstand him. However, at that exact moment, Teratektra arrives from the sky and immediately plummets toward the base. When Alessi sees this, she remembers a tip Crimson gave her to neutralize this attack. The impact causes little damage, and Teratektra is thrown back, crashing into Zora. Teratektra says he was counterattacked just as he was about to collide with the base, which intensified the impact. Ragna was the one who counterattacked, so he's some distance from where Teratektra landed. He's holding 2 swords filled with Severine, glowing brightly. Zora suspects he might be the Reaper, but Taratectra says the Severine isn't coming from his body, but from the swords. Taratectra then focuses on Ragna, who refuses to say his name because he hates talking to dragons. Taratectra suggests that instead, they speak through their strength. Meanwhile, Crimson goes to inform the others about the superior dragons and how they reach maturity. She says the most talented ones mature faster, and Taratectra took 10 years, which means he's not all that talented. Even he knows that, but he makes up for it with the power he obtained when he was still human. He's giving Ragna trouble, who's bursting with blood fire, but no matter how much Ragna cuts, he remains unharmed. Ragna drops one of his swords and removes one of his gloves to infuse his hand with the sword. The sword then begins to release a tremendous amount of power, and Taratectra prepares to use all his strength as well to see who will win between him and Ragna. Ragna uses the Dragon Slayer attack, while Taratectra fires a seismic cannon. The two attacks collide, causing a massive explosion of fire and silver. Things go quiet for a moment, and Zora starts to worry about Taratectra, but is relieved when he hears his voice. After Taratectra wins, Ragna is left lying unconscious, while the slime on his head tries to wake him up, but can't. Zora is still concerned about the possibility that Ragna might be the Reaper, but Taratectra is sure that if he were, they'd know for certain, so they can just finish him off now. Taratectra is almost crushing Ragna's head with his foot, while the slime keeps trying to wake him. Ragna then wakes up just in time to dodge, surprising both Taratectra and Zora. He basically survived by transferring his consciousness from his body to the sword. Otherwise, he would have died. Taratectra then summons some lower dragons to deal with Ragna, since he's no longer a threat to him. Ragna defends himself and gets frustrated that the dragon is looking down on him. He's beaten and exhausted to the point of coughing up blood, but still wants to fight Taratectra, who is now leaving. Ragna tries to stop him because they were supposed to be talking about their strengths. Taratectra knows they've already talked enough for him to understand that Ragna is stronger. He would have won if his sword had been able to withstand his power. Because of that, Zora instructs Taratectra to head to Alessia's location and blast her with his cannon. Ragna doesn't give up on trying to stop him, but the lower dragons are endless. He's way too exhausted and badly hurt from his earlier fight. Still, they don't stop coming, but luckily Shin shows up and even scolds him for being beaten by lower dragons. Garme also appears, making Ragna ask why they're here instead of defending the base. But dragons attack the trio, and they quickly take care of them. Meanwhile, Garme explains that most of the base entrances were blocked, and Isaac's squad is protecting the one entrance that's still open, while Lesse is fighting outside with 200 soldiers. They both went there to help Ragna, but Ragna is sure he doesn't need them. This really irritates Shin, especially when Ragna insists he can handle things alone, because he never dies. Suddenly, he slips off the back of a dragon and falls. Shin uses his powerful move and wipes out several dragons to clear a path to Ragna. He yells at him that everyone has a duty to defeat as many dragons as possible to escape, and that's why Ragna wants to be the only one to do it. Shin and the others can hide in the base and let him handle all the dragons alone. This makes Shin even angrier, and he challenges Ragna to a duel. He's lost every duel before, but now he's determined to prove he's not a coward. Ragna is confused by the sudden duel in the middle of battle, but Shin gives him no chance to object. He charges straight in, forcing Ragna to defend himself. Ragna is unprepared, so he doesn't perform well. After 70 duels, Shin wins his first, nearly slicing off Ragna's head. Ragna is shocked, and Shin walks over to Garme, at which point the slime transfers from Ragna to Shin's head. It tells Shin it knows where Taratek is. He had escaped, and the three set out to find and defeat him. Meanwhile, Alessi creates a cage using her barrier arts. Alessi was lured to the dark forest Pusora to be at a disadvantage, but she's confident she can simply turn the forest into her own territory. She believes this because the magic circle is nearly complete. All they have to do is keep defeating dragons and survive until they can teleport. Unfortunately, Zora discovered the plan and knows they're trying to teleport using dragon magic. Alessi is frustrated and orders her squad to watch for anything strange in the forest and strike immediately. But before she can finish talking, they're ambushed from above, but she blocks it with a barrier. Many experienced low and mid-level dragons begin using special attacks from their superior commanders. That means these dragons are as strong as high-tier ones, and there are around 40 of them. Alessi tries to take control and guides her squad on how to fight, but it's still a huge challenge. While this happens, Zora watches as the dragon magic is absorbed by the teleportation team. The absorption circle seems to be 2 kilometers wide, which is supposedly large for a developing country like Alessi's. He wonders who else might be involved, and remembers that Nebulin saw a woman near Ragna's body the other day. She used a very strong barrier spell, and maybe she's connected to this. Still, Zora is confident, but he worries a bit that unexpected things might lead to their defeat. But none of that matters. As long as they capture Alessi, maybe she'll lose hope and teleport on her own. To prevent that, he needs to take control of the magic circle in the base, and at the same time, Isaac is struggling to defend the base, since his frontline soldiers were suddenly wiped out, and he didn't even see how it happened. He's confused, but he knows the dragon they're facing is responsible. It arrived suddenly and deactivated the barrier, leaving many soldiers dead. It starts approaching, so Isaac orders his squad to fall back while the firing squad covers them. It's a mature dragon that can use magic, and Crimson once said Ultimatia can control time, so maybe mature dragons can have that ability too. Isaac gets ready to fight as the firing squad opens fire on the dragon, but it stops time and releases powerful energy blasts that hit more soldiers and knock Isaac down. He no longer knows what to do, since he can't block an attack that's outside his reality. But he gets motivated, grabs his swords, and charges at the dragon. Maybe it has a weakness, like a time limit for using time stop. Whatever it is, he has to act while time is flowing. The dragon hits him with another energy blast, but he blocks it and lands a grazing hit on its shoulder. He jumps back, and the dragon tries to stop time again, but Crimson shows up, and it mistakes him for Ultimatia. Crimson throws a ball at it, confusing it even more. It's not sure whether to grab the ball, so it stops time, which activates the ball, causing it to explode like a flashbang and emit intense sunlight. And as you know, sunlight is a weakness of dragons, so it starts burning and screams in pain until it turns to ashes. After that, time flows normally again, and Isaac and the others are confused by the bright sunlight. Crimson tells them he killed the dragon and explains how his flashbang ball works. It basically stores sunlight that would usually flash for a split second, but since it only activates when time is frozen, the flash lasts much longer, and the dragon gets so overwhelmed by the pain that it can't do anything but burn. Suddenly someone speaks, and Isaac doesn't recognize the voice. He demands to know who it is, and Crimson reveals it's one of the 500 civilians he recruited. They were also desperate to fight, so Crimson gave them weapons and hypnotized them. Isaac tries to protest, so Crimson hypnotizes him and his squad too. He found out that Zora now knows their plan and is sabotaging it. He had to come up with a backup plan fast. So now, hypnotized civilians will fight the zombies, reducing the number of people within the magic circle's range. Suddenly, they feel the 13th seat of the winged bloodline trying to break through a wall in the teleport room. He gets hit by barriers everywhere, which frustrates him and makes him scream. The scream bothers Fu, who's nearby trying to sleep. The 13th seat asks to be taken to the magic circle in exchange for a peaceful death for Fu, but Fu's not willing to make a deal. He only wants to kill the dragon. Before the battle started, he had told Lesse that the blood of a mature mid-level dragon holds 100 times more teleportation magic. The 13th seat would be a great addition to that, so Fu unleashes the power in his arm, which isn't human, and defeats the dragon, absorbing all its magic. He feels satisfied with what he's done, but suddenly his own group starts attacking him, saying he lost control and everything. Crimson watches it all unfold, and is deeply impressed by Fu's power. Now he's interested in that unit, and wants to take control of them with as little damage as possible. At that moment, Zora's roots appear and invade the area, but the hypnotized civilians react quickly. Crimson orders everyone to hurry and get out of there. Back in the forest, the battle continues. Lesse and her team are overwhelmed. The wind dragons are toying with their air force, knocking everyone down. Lesse then launches some soldiers into the air to try to break through the dragon's barrier and strike, but one of the dragons crashes straight into Lesse's cage and wounds her at an unexpected moment. Zora had already predicted she would fail either way, since she was at a disadvantage due to her lack of experience in large-scale battles. She was trying to command both offense and defense at once, not realizing how exhausting that is. He starts thinking the party's over, but Terratectra knows Ragna, Crimson, and Garmin are coming after him. Zora's already lost a third of his army, but still believes he can win if he increases the number of allies. Meanwhile, Ragna and the others can't get close to Terratectra, as the lesser dragons keep showing up non-stop. They're exhausted with no time to even breathe. Ragnar looks like he's dying, but he's still on his feet, sprinting forward and cutting down dragons without pause. He refuses to retreat, and that motivates Shin and Gaff to keep going at the same pace. But then we see that Ragnar is in unbearable pain, can barely breathe. He's freezing and just wants to stop. But he knows he can't, because he has to protect everyone on his own. What Shin said to him about playing the hero really struck a nerve, but at the same time brought a strange kind of relief. Still, he realizes that kind of thinking is just weakness. Suddenly, the trio stops in front of a horde of dragons. Ragnar charges in without hesitation and wipes them all out, impressing Gaff and Shin. Even looking like the Walking Dead, his technique is razor sharp. Zora realizes he miscalculated. Ragnar is far too relentless. But then he starts to feel a strange sensation, like defeat is closing in, and he's getting more and more desperate. We see that Ragnar has learned a lot about his aura flow, the Silverine. We see that it was made to resist magic. It cuts and freezes magical power, no matter what. As the dragons approach, Ragnar uses the few seconds before impact to fully refine his freezing technique, and now he's even more powerful, both from his own strength and the experience of his future self. All he needs is to use his imagination and let the Silverine flow to the tip of his blade as he swings it once. The Silverine flows, erasing all the dragons at once, without the sword even touching them. Meanwhile, Taratectra is furious with Ragnar's persistence. He's afraid it could inspire the others too, but Zora doesn't think that matters, because Alessi is nearly dead, lying on the ground, unable to move. Some dragons try to attack her, but a soldier named Christopher comes to her rescue. Alessi tells him to go northwest, so he picks her up and heads that way. Before that, we saw that Alessi had asked Crimson to help locate Zora. Crimson thought it was dangerous, but even so, estimated that Zora was about 1 kilometer from the base. With that info, Alessi figured out that Taratectra had dragged Ragnar far from Zora's location. Crimson also told her that Zora can grow eyes around himself to see up to about 2 kilometers away, so he must be in a spot with a clear view of the base. Alessi sharpens her senses in that direction to narrow down the area and manages to find Zora. Zora realizes he's been found and releases a poisonous gas to try to stop Alessi, but Nazarena appears behind him and launches a surprise attack, tearing out his head and heart. Unfortunately, Zora's body is still standing. Nazarena realizes it's a decoy and leaves the rest to Alessi. Alessi thanks Nazarena for helping her and for figuring out that the real Zora is actually 100 meters underground. She starts manipulating the ground to drag him out, using all her strength. She orders Christopher to throw a sword at him, and Zora starts to panic and begs Taratectra to bomb the forest with his cannons. At that moment, Ragnar and the others see Taratectra, and he sees them too. He points his cannons at them and begins firing, then reports to Zora and surveys the area. He finds Alessi, who's been hit, and is lying on the ground. He manifests a body in front of her, and praises both her efforts and her units. Earlier, Crimson had been talking about Princess Lacutia, a heroine known for many military feats, seen as a true miracle by the Solarians. Later, she became a true scourge of dragons. Many believe Alessi is her reincarnation. Zora once served Lacutia when he was still human, and even after becoming a dragon, he kept his memories. Because of that, Crimson encouraged Alessi to keep fighting, since she would remind Zora of Lacutia, and that would drive him mad. Zora asks Alessi to join the winged bloodline. He doesn't want her to die. He even suggests her soldiers want the same. She wakes up and realizes Zora is starting to compare her to Lacutia. She reveals to him that she can control Silverine. And since he was made to resist magic, she can manipulate that resistance at will. She may not be his superior like Lacutia was, but when it comes to magical resolve and resistance, she's stronger. She conjures multiple barriers and summons a massive spear that pierces Zora, pinning him to a tree. Zora freezes but still forms a mouth on his forehead to keep talking. He says he won't waste time and plans to poison Alessi quickly, but 2 soldiers appear and carry her away. They'd rather see her dead than let him have her. Christopher also arrives and rips the spear from Zora, shattering him. Alessi communicates telepathically with her unit to motivate them to keep fighting. They need to gather all their willpower to fight, and she'll access that will to channel it into the spear. She manages to focus it completely and orders Christopher to throw it at Taratectra. Zora tries to warn him of the incoming danger, and he quickly fires back with his cannon. The 2 attacks collide, creating a massive explosion of fire and silver. But the spear cuts through the cannon, and as the soldier's willpower grows, the spear pierces deeper. Zora emerges from the ground like a monster and tries to attack Alessi, but Nazarena saves her. At that moment, the spear pierces Terra Tectra, and Ragna, who was nearby, grabs it. He plunges it in with his hand to trigger a massive silver explosion inside Terra Tectra. Terra Tectra prepares to fire the cannon, but it's too late. After that, Ragna collapses, and the slime praises him, but he's worried that Terra Tectra self-destructed when he was about to be engulfed by the silver. So he asks the slime to take him to wherever Terra Tectra's scent is, so he can finish the job. Zora finds the match, panics, and starts calling out for Terra Tectra, scared he might be dead. Terra Tectra replies that he's about to die, but wants to take the enemy down with him. So Zora, unfortunately, orders him to self-destruct and make his death worth something. He puts a plan into motion, and Zora retreats from the area. Terra Tectra gathers all his power for a final move, causing a massive explosion. Luckily, Ragna arrives just in time and stops the blast with a huge amount of silver. From a distance, we can see Ragna holding back the explosion, and if he fails, everyone dies. Ragna keeps pouring out silver, but the blast pushes him back. He wants to push harder, but his sword will shatter if he does. Alessi notices and realizes the problem is with his sword. She feels defeated, but she's not giving up that easily. So she leaves her body and consciously goes to support Ragna. She places her hand over his to strengthen the sword and make it last a bit longer. She asks Ragna to use every last bit of strength. Ragna feels her hand, and through it, the burning resolve of her unit, and together they combine powers, expanding the silver's reach and freezing a huge portion of the blast. Unfortunately, the explosion envelops the silver and burns them even more, targeting just the two. Ragna reveals he has one last trick. He and Alessi let go of the sword, and when Ragna reveals there's a sword inside him, Alessi helps unlock that power. Somehow, she ends up seeing memories from his future self, lonely and sad, and she's deeply moved by it. Ragna uses his silver battle arts to help fully unleash his power. He reflects on how he must hunt all dragons alone, or else he's weak and reliant on others. But now he feels a fire burning in his chest, a new hope, and punches the sword, releasing all the power into the blast and beyond. Zora watches from afar, completely speechless. The explosion freezes everything around, and Ragna stands before it, with Alessi stunned right behind him. She remembers the Ragna from the future and starts crying, but really she's mad that someone so strong and beautiful still ended up alone in the future. It's unbelievable to her, which only makes her cry harder. Ragna's moved by it and thanks her for meeting his future self. She thanks him too, for helping her and her unit reach victory. Also, she thinks that final attack was really cool. Then she tells him to ditch Crimson and stay with her. She won't let him have such a miserable future, and he might try to think it over. But she makes it clear, no is not an option. With that, she leaves and returns to her body, ready to meet him after the teleport. Ragna stands there, amazed by her. He thanks her again for surviving with him, since, in the end, they saved each other, before collapsing. Alessi wakes up in her body, and right after, the teleportation magic kicks in. Everyone is happy and relieved that everything worked out, but that's cut short when Alessi loses her head, literally, from Old Kamui's sudden attack. Then he puts her head back in place and charges at Ragna, forcing him into battle. He even knocks down the slime in the process, before slime can do anything. Ragna is at his limit, and now it's about his true worth. He needs to dig deep if he wants to keep fighting, because this is the final boss. Back in the capital, Nebulin starts getting worried because Old Kamui left. Ultimadia says he went to join the fight. According to her, there's no need to worry, since he'd never lose to someone as weak as Ragna. Old Kamui and Ragna begin their battle, and before this, Crimson had told Ragna about the Claw Monarch, who doesn't share blood with her followers. Instead, she gives them weapons, claws, and Old Kamui stole one of those. That's why Ragna was told not to fight him, but he forgot all about it and keeps fighting. Old Kamui is insanely fast, attacking over and over without leaving any openings, forcing Ragna into a defensive stance. Even so, Ragna holds his ground and takes the hits. He headbutts Old Kamui, who slices off his head, but Ragna instantly regenerates and counters, throwing Kamui to the ground. Then he zaps Ragna with electricity, slamming him into the ground at insane speed. Ragna gets up and uses his sword to retaliate, but Kamui breaks the sword and kicks him down again. Before he can rise, Kamui attacks once more. Luckily, Ragna blocks in time and counterattacks. Kamui is pushed back, and Ragna channels Silverine into his hand, ready to slash when Kamui gets close. He pulls out another sword and throws it, but it shatters on impact, and when Kamui draws his claw, Ragna's already on the ground, unable to move. He hears Alice's voice and wakes up in a ruined place. When he sees her, he runs over and grabs her shoulders, shouting her name over and over. He can't believe she's alive, and she can't believe he's that close. She backs off but asks him to call her by her nickname, Delia. Ragna listens, making her all flustered. Then he's shocked that the teleport actually worked and asks about the others. She takes him to them, but suddenly stops, saying she can't go any farther. She has something else to take care of. She's going to forge a sword she's always wanted to forge. It's not clear how she'll do that, since the details are still a mystery. All she knows is, it's a sword of the silver comet. A silver comet crosses the sky as she explains how it once passed long ago, becoming the origin of all silver. She wants to forge a sword worthy of Ragna, but suddenly the ground collapses. And as Ragna falls, she wishes to see him again. He calls out to her and wakes up, revealing that everything was just a dream. He can still feel her presence, which brings him relief. He looks around and sees he's bandaged, with a few soldiers sleeping inside a tent. He steps outside and realizes he's at a camp set up in the same abandoned place from his dream. The slime is also there, trying to cheer the soldiers up after the losses they've suffered. Ragna approaches them, and the slime is happy to see him. Isaac shows up and takes him to meet the Solarians. They were the ones who tried to heal him, even though it was tough due to Silverine's reaction to magic. Ragna is shocked to see that the Karulas all look like Ultimatia. His first instinct is to kill one of them on the spot, but Isaac explains that they're working for a solar church. The Karula clones still need to explain why they all look like Ultimatia. The strongest dragon hunters belong to a group called Dragon Scourge, an elite team of hunters formed by the solar church that worship the sun god. Each member of that group was given the title of saint, and one of those saints was Karula, who had the power to control and manipulate time. Her ability was so unique that, after she died, the church decided to create an army of clones. These Karula clones were used as healers, and could even revive soldiers fighting dragons. However, the clones weren't perfect. Each clone could live for about 4 years on average, since their lifespan was drained every time they used time magic. They only had a fraction of the original Karula's power, with rare exceptions. One of those exceptions was clone number 19,835. The rest were hollow shells, focused only on their duty. But this one was different. She had emotions, which allowed her not only to learn and wield all of Karula's original power, but also gave her a longer lifespan. She acted as Karula, serving as a commander at one of the frontline church bases. One day, though, Karula committed the greatest sin imaginable. She healed a young dragon that would go on to terrorize the church 8 years later. Even the sun god appeared to punish her for this sin. Every Karula made after her was destroyed, and she was branded a traitor and executed. That's when time stopped, and a childlike version of Karula appeared, asking her to become her servant. That was the dragon god, who had no physical form, shaping itself according to the will of its faithful. Karula didn't want to die. She wanted to be saved, so she agreed to become the dragon god's servant. The dragon god gave her not only dragon blood, but the title of dragon monarch, whose power is second only to the dragon god itself. It also gave her a new name, Ultimatia. Later, she became the leader of the group of 13 dragon monarchs, known as Blood of the Wind. They brought chaos and killed humans, because that was the dragon god's will. And it all started because that god loved a bakery in a small kingdom town. The bakery was protected from dragon attacks, but it was robbed and had to shut down. Since then, the dragon god sulked like a child and decided to destroy the entire kingdom because of it. After explaining all her motives, Karula asks Ragna to become a dragon scourge to help the refugees. He refuses, even when they promise rewards. So they also refuse to help the refugees, because Alessi failed to become a dragon scourge, and Ragna won't take her place. Ragna then sees a glimmer of light from one of the abandoned buildings. It's Chimera signaling him to come over. He asks the Karula leader why the church didn't help, and she says they only help those who can become dragon scourges. A person must first prove to be a miracle from God. Alessi failed to do that, but Ragna didn't. That's divine will. Ragna gets furious and slams the table, asking why, if God is so good, he doesn't come down himself to kill the dragons. He orders them to shelter the refugees, and in exchange, he'll defeat Ultimatia. He grabs the slime and heads to meet Crimson in the abandoned building. Crimson heals him fully in the globe chamber, which is now repaired thanks to its self-repair ability. Otherwise, Crimson would never forgive him. Also, he had nothing better to do the past 2 days, so he fixed and reconnected the globe to its base on the moon. Everyone heads there, and Ragna reveals Alessi is still alive. Crimson thinks her head was cut off, meaning she should be dead. But Ragna explains that, at the end of the battle, he and Alessi connected deeply through their auras, and he still feels that bond. Also, Utokamui reattached her head right after cutting it off, and turned her into a puppet like Ima. He even took her body with him, which wasn't necessary. He could have just taken the head. But none of that convinces Crimson. Ragna says he wishes he had told the soldiers she was still alive, because he still wants to see her again. He asks for Crimson's help, since the battle's not over. But Crimson refuses to act based on uncertainty, even if Ragna strongly believes she's alive. They can't defeat the dragons now, because the enemy controls time magic and has Autokamui on their side. They need the element of surprise, and they don't have time magic. Ragna offers to deal with Autokamui, while Crimson handles Ultimatia. But Crimson needs time to prepare, and says there's no point fighting now. Ragna insists Alessi is reason enough. She's incredible, and they need her to beat the dragons. Crimson is shocked, because he thought Ragna was on his side, not hers. They made a promise. He can't afford to lose Ragna now. But Ragna assures him he won't die, because he never dies. Crimson says that's just dumb luck, which Ragna finds funny. If that's the case, then he'll stop relying on luck. All of his memories with the unit flood his mind, and he finally understands why he wants to fight. He wants to save everyone, so they can all laugh together again. He no longer asks for Crimson's help, but he does ask him to open the gate again, so he can return to Earth. Crimson realizes he messed up. He sees that Ragna is no longer a nobody. He now controls immense power, and there's nothing Crimson can do about it. He opens the gate, but warns Ragna he'll regret it. As Ragna steps forward, he suddenly feels dizzy and collapses. It's the poison from when they first met. It was designed to activate precisely at times like this. When Ragna tries to leave Crimson, Crimson is disappointed, calling him a useless tool. He says he can recreate Ragna's art using someone else. He could even mess with his brain and turn him into a zombie. That'd be funny. Fortunately for Crimson, Ragna wakes up. Crimson is shocked he's still alive, because he said Ragna would die painfully. Crimson denies it, saying he doesn't understand it either. He used AI-powered gene-destroying nanomachines. Even if Ragna is half sword, he should at least be half dead. Crimson gets furious, but Ragna slaps him on the head to calm him down, which sends Crimson flying. Crimson admits he feels bad for breaking his promise, but Ragna isn't moved at all. Chimera tries to attack him, but he catches her instantly. He remembers when he met Crimson in the future. He killed her and never saw her heart. He wants to know where that heart is, because maybe that's why Crimson's words feel empty. The Lassie unit moved him many times by risking their lives. Crimson never had a chance. He's always scheming. And even if the odds are low, they're not zero. If Crimson can't accept the challenge now, how will he ever destroy all the dragon bloodlines? Crimson is speechless. Chimera transforms and tries to attack Ragna again, but Crimson stops her, telling Ragna to do whatever he wants. He leaves, and Crimson goes to sleep. Ragna returns to camp and sees the soldiers feeling much better. They found out Lassie is still alive, because Christopher's silver prosthetic arm can only move with her silver manipulation, and it's still moving, so they're preparing to rescue her, and Ragna's going with them. Meanwhile, Lassie is with Wat Kamui in the capital. She's still alive, and when she wakes up, she's a little confused. Wat Kamui explains that the head reconnects when you put it back on the body right after it's been cut. But Lassie has a poison mark on her neck that will be triggered and kill her if Ragna and his unit try to rescue her. The mark was left by Zora, who's furious after losing his companion. Suddenly, Wat Kamui starts freezing, and it spreads quickly through his body. That's been happening since his fight with Ragna, and it's one more reason why he's keeping Lassie captive. He wants to fight Ragna again, but in his best form, and he knows he'll need Lassie for that. Lassie remembers she'll die if Ragna gets close to her, and Wat Kamui confirms it, but tells her she needs to forge a weapon strong enough to withstand his claws. Meanwhile, Crimson is lying in bed, looking kind of depressed. He checks the capital through satellite view, and realizes the dragons seem to be in a hurry. He starts speculating that it must be because of Ultimatia, who can't use her time manipulation magic. That makes this the perfect moment to strike, so he gathers his servants and gets ready. He decides he'll go to battle alongside Ragna and Lassie's unit. Ragna and the unit depart with Fu's help, so they appear in the capital, and the mark on Lassie's neck is triggered, making her start to suffocate. That's how Wat Kamui knows the enemy has arrived. The soldiers start moving down and realize the sun isn't rising because of Nebulin's barrier. Borgius also notices their arrival and begins to attack. Wat Kamui waits for Ragna, and the soldiers tell Ragna to go to him. And he does. Nebulin senses another presence approaching, but can't identify who it is. It's Crimson, using his teleportation chamber, floating above the barrier. He realizes the dragons didn't stop time, even though that would be their greatest advantage. That confirms they really can't stop time anymore, so he deploys Golem's giant robot through a spatial link. Nebulin panics because he wasn't expecting any interference, and asks Borjus to intercept the machine. Ragna also realizes Crimson showed up, just like he expected. While heading toward Wat Kamui, he arrives just in time to see Lassie on the verge of death, with Wat Kamui waiting for him. He runs to her, and Wat Kamui steps aside to let them say goodbye. Ragna holds Lassie in his arms and sees how bad she looks, as the poison spreads through her body. He came to get her, just like he promised. But what can he do for someone who's dying? If he tries to freeze the poison, he might end up freezing her entirely. Maybe the Solarians or Crimson could help, but there's no time. Lassie looks like she wants to tell him to take the sword she made for him, so he takes it and remembers the silver comet from his dream. She apologizes for not being able to make a better sword than that one, so she feels like she didn't keep her promise. She regrets not being good enough because Ragna won't be able to beat Wat Kamui's claw with that sword, and she clutches it tightly and cries as the end draws near. Lassie says she'll forge a powerful sword worthy of Ragna next time. Ragna becomes anxious and agitated. He wants them both to survive and laugh together again. But if that's not possible, he wants her to watch him fight. He promises to win using that sword and to take down Wat Kamui. Even if she can't see him, he'll shine so brightly she'll have no choice but to see him clearly. Nazareni arrives and picks Lassie up in her arms, leaving Ragna free to start the path toward Wat Kamui. If Lassie dies, Ragna will be sad, but he'll also be grateful for having known her. So she better keep watching till the very end, because from that moment on, he'll be stronger than even his future self. Wat Kamui then descends, and Ragna demands that he transform into a dragon right now, but Kamui wants to pick up where they left off and show him the claw. The claw can change its properties based on the user, so it turns into a lightning claw when he grabs it. It expands and transforms at light speed, growing massive. It releases shockwaves so strong they tear the ground apart. But Ragna doesn't care. He just wants Wat Kamui to turn into a dragon. Wat Kamui then launches an attack, and Ragna instantly freezes everything, even his arm, using just one hand. Then he strikes fast and slices Wat Kamui in half, which makes Kamui even more excited. Ragna then places the sword on his back, and it begins to shine intensely. He wants Wat Kamui to transform into his most powerful form so he can crush him at the peak of his strength. The sword shines even brighter on his back, making Ragna float slightly above the ground, as if he were a god. Wat Kamui finds it all incredibly fun as he regenerates. He starts comparing their weapons. His claw hits 100% efficiency in the hands of the user, but Ragna's sword pushes the user to 120%. He finally gets serious and transforms into a dragon. He charges at him, and Ragna blocks it with just his hands, unleashing a massive amount of silverin. This causes total chaos around them, and Nazarena pulls Lacey out of there. Ragna sees them, and they send him a sword to help boost his momentum. Then he focuses back on his enemy and goes in for close combat, hitting him with more silverin, which pushes him back a bit. He keeps attacking, and Wat Kamui counters with his claw, leading to a huge clash between the two. Wat Kamui finds an opening and smacks Ragna with his tail, slamming him into the ground. Then he extends his claw to pierce him from a distance, but Ragna dodges and gets back up. Wat Kamui charges, but Ragna blocks it, and they keep going like that for a while until Wat Kamui gets the upper hand. He sneaks behind Ragna and fires at him. Luckily, the sword activates one of Lacey's barriers to block the shot. Still, Wat Kamui manages to throw Ragna down and pin him with his claw. Ragna tries to freeze the claw, while Wat Kamui prepares to blast him with a monstrous energy ball. He breaks free just in time and blocks the blast with one hand, then turns the other into a blade and slices the attack in half, reaching Wat Kamui and dragging him into the sky before cutting off his arm. Wat Kamui then tries to counter before he regenerates, but Ragna blocks it, and they keep trading blows while Nazarena watches from below. With Lacey in her arms, she's admiring Ragna's light and telling that to Lacey. Lacey tells her to stop wasting time on someone who's about to die and orders her to leave. Nazarena gets worried, but realizes Lacey is no longer responding. She walks away after saying goodbye, leaving Lacey's body behind. Meanwhile, Nebulin starts sensing Crimson's presence. He had placed the ultimatum in an alternate space and is worried Crimson might be there to take control. Crimson starts casting a spell and breaks through all of Nebulin's barriers. Nebulin starts panicking because Crimson is too fast. He's undoing all of Nebulin's work in seconds, but that motivates Nebulin to try harder. He fights to protect the barrier and stop Crimson's advance. Unfortunately for him, the slime appears and swallows him whole. Crimson finally breaks through everything and reaches the alternate space. He calmly walks toward Ultimatia, who's facing the other way and aiming a gun at her. But before she shoots, Nebulin shouts her name to warn her. She flinches and turns around to see Crimson shooting her in the shoulder. She uses her blood to create fire and launch it at him. He dodges and lands on another platform. He accesses the space's system and locks them both inside, manipulating the time speed. He doesn't want anyone to enter, and he doesn't want Ultimatia to use her magic outside that space. She notices her wound isn't healing, and remembers old Kamui told her to get angry in situations like this. So she gets furious and transforms into her dragon form. Before that, Crimson had gone to retrieve his hidden heart. His monarch version appears, and they argue about whether it's even worth Crimson taking the heart. Other personas of him show up too, and none of them understand why he's doing this. But he had already decided it was worth risking everything for Ragna. So he restores the heart to its place, fusing with the monarch, and unlocking his true power to face Ultimatia. She hits him with an energy beam blast, but Crimson dodges and throws flashbangs. Since time is slowed in that space, the orbs just flicker a bit, making Ultimatia shield herself. Crimson shoots at her, but the bullets bounce off the shield. She tries hitting him with her tail, but he dodges and explains how he designed the bullets to kill her. They disrupt blood flow and disable magic. Since both he and Ultimatia manipulate time, their blood flow is similar, which means the bullets would work on him too. All he has to do is hit her heart, and she dies. He fires another bullet that accelerates 50 times, while the flashbangs pulse again. It makes her flinch in pain, and the bullet hits her wing, breaking the shield. She falls off the platform, creating a shattered pillar with Crimson behind it. He charges another bullet, and she curls up and unleashes a massive energy explosion in fear. Meanwhile, the battle continues elsewhere. Kristoff and Fu take out Zora, but before dying, he uses his secret weapon to kill them too. Isaac shows up and freezes him instantly. Back with Crimson, he realizes Ultimatia's energy blasts are absurd. She might be the weakest monarch, but her magic reserves are massive. She can overpower most dragons just by spamming attacks, which is exactly what she's doing to Crimson now, making it almost impossible for him to get close. So he decides to use a psychic attack to mute the space, amplify his voice, and torture her. He tells her she's nothing like Karula, and that's why she's trying to become a monster to feel special. She's just a clone, and that rattles her, especially when Crimson also insults the dragon god. He literally made her destroy a country over a pastry shop, which is just insane. He paints the scene as he sees it, a young Karula look-alike who resembles the sisters that died because of her. Ultimatia starts panicking and reflecting on her past, how she just wanted to be kind and didn't want to choose who to save, because she wanted to save herself. Meanwhile, Borgias is furious over Nebulin's death and storms into the room where the slime still consumes him. He destroys it, and the whole building, leaving behind Nebulin's skeleton. He's heartbroken, but remembers there's something more important: protecting Ultimatia. After mourning, he breaks through the alternate space's walls, just in time, as Crimson is about to shoot the crying Ultimatia. He calls out to her so she can escape through the hole he made, and she tries to flee, but Crimson chases her. She tries to blast him again, but he dodges everything and keeps pursuing. Outside, we see Chimera, who's sadly dead, but Snake, her tail, is still alive. He switches places with her to manifest his human form. Borgias instantly senses him. They once served Crimson together, so he's stunned he's still alive. Furious at his betrayal of the dragon god, Borgias unleashes his rage. He fires a massive magical attack, but it misses Snake. Snake counters with a devastating move called World Collapse, causing Borgias to explode from the inside. The move wipes out everything in its path, including the alternate space and Nebulin's barrier. It injures both Ultimatia and Crimson, throwing them to the ground. The sun shines on all of them, and with the barrier gone, Borgias bursts into flames. He asks Wat Kamui to protect Ultimatia, since he's all that's left. But just then, Isaac finishes him off by decapitating him. The remaining unit rushes toward the wounded Ultimatia. Wat Kamui is still fighting Ragna, and despite being faster, he's struggling. Ragna is going all out, attacking and defending. Wat Kamui slashes from every direction, bending his claws at will, and Ragna dodges like a maniac before counterattacking. Wat Kamui blocks, risking freezing his claw. Then he blocks again, and realizes Ragna is starting to overpower him. Ragna slices off his legs and tail, making him drop the claw. He keeps ramping up his silverin to hit Wat Kamui with a hunter flash. That forces Wat Kamui to go all in too. He grabs the claw and parries Ragna's attack. Ultimatia gets up just as Isaac and the others reach her, and tries to defend herself, but she's stabbed in the head by Nazarena, screaming in pain, which causes her to fire off energy blasts in all directions. The explosions kill several soldiers, and even blast Nazarena off her. Wat Kamui then uses his ultimate weapons, the lightning god battle art, which increases gravity drastically and pulls everyone down, even Ultimatia. Ragna is shaken, and Wat Kamui fuses with his claw, turning his arms into blades. Ragna also powers up with a blade on his arm, but Wat Kamui is too sharp. He slices Ragna's blade so fast he doesn't even see it happen. He also moves so fast, Ragna can't read or react to him anymore. Ragna manages to land a punch, but Wat Kamui knees him in the gut, and the knee sharpens into a claw and pierces him. Wat Kamui then decapitates Ragna while boosting his electric charge. On the ground, Crimson is losing a lot of blood from his wound. He hears the slime wandering around looking for food. He calls for it, and the slime comes along with a girl from the nursing unit. Right then, an explosion erupts from one of Wat Kamui's attacks. The shockwave from it drags everything in its path. Ragna's head flies off while Wat Kamui says he wants to see the clawed monarch now. He's reached his peak and wants to meet her, and says he also wants to meet the dragon god. But then Ragna surprises him with another massive hunter flash, sending him deep underground and even breaking his sword. He then places his head back onto his body and uses Silverine to heal himself. The guy's busted beyond belief, huh? He says he's still in pain, but refuses to let Wat Kamui do as he pleases. Ultimatia crawls over to where Wat Kamui crashed and screams his name. He yells back, telling her to stay out of his fight. Ragna then takes position, and Wat Kamui realizes he's about to use the same move from their first battle. But he's not too worried, because he thinks he can withstand it now. So he launches himself at Ragna. But in doing so, he uses an extra technique to ascend into his ultimate form, a form so powerful it could crush even the sun. Before reaching Ragna, Wat Kamui plans to pour out everything he's got and become absolute. Meanwhile, Ragna knows he needs to refine the Hunter Flash, because he still doesn't have enough to defeat Wat Kamui. He has to become faster than sound, faster than lightning, and hit instantly. With that goal, Ragna powers up even further, and cuts Wat Kamui twice before he can even land a single hit. The energy released is ridiculous, causing a massive explosion that completely engulfs Wat Kamui. As the clawed monarch watches from afar, she comments that Wat Kamui always beat his enemies with speed. But ironically, that's exactly how he was defeated too. As he dies, Wat Kamui remembers how he stole every power he came across and made them his own. But Ragna's power, he just can't steal, because not even he understands where it comes from. Wat Kamui hurls his claw at Ragna, who blocks it with his sword, but ends up collapsing to the ground right after. Ultimatia witnesses everything, shocked that Wat Kamui has vanished. She simply can't believe it, can't even accept it. She screams, releasing an insane amount of magic that literally stops time. When she realizes what happened, she gets her hopes up, thinking her power has returned, and that now she can rewind time and bring everyone back. But just then, the girl from Alessia's unit fires Crimson's gun. She had been given this mission by Crimson, and when she learned that Ultimatia wanted to rewind time, she started to doubt, because if Ultimatia did it, she might see her fallen comrades again too. But before she could even make a conscious choice, the gun fired. The girl from Alessia's unit drops to her knees, crying over what she just did, while Ultimatia dies on the ground. Afterward, Crimson seals his heart once again and leaves the monarch's body, returning to his normal self. The battlefield goes silent, with the bodies of soldiers scattered through the rubble. It's not a pretty sight, not even for Crimson. Ragna sits there, holding the remains of his sword, staring at it. He has a vision of his future self, and that future him asks if he has regrets. He says no, because he wouldn't have won without everyone's help. Still, he feels sad. His future self walks toward him and transforms into Crimson, who then asks if he's going to quit because of that sadness. And Ragna says no, he can endure it, but he'll never stop dethroning dragons, even if he has to do it alone. Crimson then wakes him up, and he finds himself in a capsule. Crimson and the golem bring him to the room where Leslie is sleeping. Nazarene, the slime, and Isaac are there too. Crimson explains that Leslie has been completely cured of Zora's poison. When Isaac was about to finish Zora off in battle, Zora gave him an antidote as a final act. So physically she's fine, but she's in a coma. He remembers when she asked him to stay by her side because she didn't want him to end up happy. And he's overwhelmed with joy to see that she's still alive, and in a way, okay. He cries, assuring himself that one day she'll wake up and make him that sword she promised. And despite everything that happened, a win is still a win. And every one of Leslie's soldiers, alive or dead, agrees with that. After that, Ragnar packs up the piece of his sword, grabs his cloak, and sets off to hunt the next dragon bloodline.